Hi everyone and welcome back to the Shack, where today we'll be looking at the latest update to Retrogames TheC64, which if you don't know is a modern take on the classic Commodore 64. The C64 aims to offer most of the fun of the original, but with modern connectivity for displays and USB joysticks and gamepads. The machine has been well received since its launch in December 2019 and has had a number of firmware updates over its lifetime, which have added new features and also new games, some of which differ by geography. And it's this latest update which may be the most important yet. Let's have a look at what's included. Aside from the usual bug fixes, there are three key items that make me excited for this release. The first is the addition of support for the Commodore RAM Expansion Unit, or REU, which was released in 1986 alongside the Commodore C128. There were three versions released during its lifetime: the 1700 with 128K of RAM, the 1750 with 512K, and the 1764 with 256K. The 1700 and 1750 were both designed to work with the C128 only, and the 1764 was designed to work with the C64 only. However, it quickly became apparent that actually all RAM expansion units would work on both machines, albeit against Commodore's advice, as there were very subtle differences on their mainboards. In addition, C64 users often had to upgrade their power supplies as the stock units would struggle to provide enough amps. Clearly, with the C64, we won't have any of those problems as it's a software solution, and that means that the C64 can support up to 16 megabytes of RAM expansion, which I don't think anything would ever utilise unless someone knows better. Let me know in the comments. The second nice update is the addition of joystick port selection. By default, the 64 looks for a joystick in port 2. And this port became the standard port that most developers eventually considered the default port, after it was found that waggling the joystick in port 1 could result in the C64 registering unwanted key presses. The reason for this was due to the way that the joystick ports were connected to the keyboard matrix. Port 1 was wired to some of the column lines, and port 2 was wired to some of the row lines. If the kernel was scanning the columns and found a signal, it would assume a key had been pressed. The same didn't happen for the rows, so port 2 was unaffected. Thirdly, we have full multi-disc support, which should finally allow us to play those classic multi-disc games like Defender of the Crown and Pool of Radiance through a simple on-screen disc swapping interface. So, without further ado, let's update the firmware and then give all of this a test. Let's just check the firmware version we currently have to see how far behind I am with all of these updates. To do this, bring up the menu by briefly pressing the power button or by using the menu button on the joystick. Next, choose Options, then Device Settings, followed by System Information. And we can see that the last version I installed was 1.3.2, a while ago. Updates for the system are cumulative, so we needn't worry about having missed previous versions. Download the latest 1.5.2 firmware update and place the .bin file in the root of your USB stick, and make sure this is the only .bin file in that location. Then pop the USB stick into the machine. I'd recommend using the USB slot on the rear. With the USB stick inserted, bring up the menu. Select Options, Device Settings, System Information, and you'll see that the update is there. Press Apply, and the C64 will begin the update process. After the update is applied, the machine will restart, and this just takes a few moments. When the C64 is rebooted, go into Options, Device Settings, System Information, and we can see that we're now on version 1.5.2. So let's do some tests, starting with the multi-disc support, and what better game than Turrican, a true classic for the C64 and supplied on 2 discs, handy. Let's load up the first disc, side A, and press the rocket to launch the game. Get it? Launch, rocket. Never mind, I'm sure they meant well.
Hello and welcome to Turrican. Be my guest. Another day, another try. But remember, shoot or die.
That still gives me chills even after all these years, and technically still very impressive. A little while later, and we're presented with the obligatory trainer screen, which we'll just click through. Another little burst of loading, and we're ready to go. Yay! We're almost, very nearly, ready to play. Let's click fire. And it's here we're asked to change the disc, which we do by pressing the menu button, selecting Media Access, selecting Turrican Side B, which pops it into the virtual drive, and then pressing the menu button again. Pressing fire to continue, the C64 recognises the new disc and continues to load. Nice and simple. So now let's test the joystick swapping. For this, I'll be using the popular 64 Doctor Diagnostics. Load the program in the usual way, and then press and hold the menu button. Press the leftmost of the 4 small buttons on the joystick to put the stick in port 1. Then we'll test all the directions and the fire button. Looks good. Press and hold the menu button again, and this time press the second of the small buttons to put the joystick in port 2. A quick waggle and a press shows that we've successfully switched ports. Nice. One last check to do, and that's to see if the RAM expansion unit is recognised. There are lots of memory testers, but I wanted to see how GEOS would react to a 2MB memory boost. I created a disk image for GEOS and added the R2 flag to the file name to indicate that the program should load with a 2MB REU in place. And it's showing 2048K. I'd say that's also a successful test. So, overall, is this an important update? For me, at least, I don't think I'll get any use out of the RAM expansion unit capabilities. Your mileage may of course vary. The joystick swapping is a useful feature for some older games, but for me, it's all about the ease of disc swapping. Pool of Radiance, here I come. I do hope you've enjoyed this episode, and as always, thanks for watching. Please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell to be notified of new content. If you have a TheC64, please leave your comments below, as we always like to read them. And until next time in the shack, it's goodbye from me.